Welcome to Fast Five, where our three panelists weigh in on 5 separate topics. Let's get started. Kaplan University was purchased by Purdue University. We have a Purdue University campus in Washington County at this point. How cool is that?
Well, I guess it's pretty cool.
Well, what's really cool is if you're enrolled in Kaplan now and you graduate, guess where your diploma will say?
Purdue.
Purdue.
Yeah, well, I guess that.
Well, and will it be the full university, or is this going to be a subsidiary that is going to represent maybe a different student body, or what is? Do we know enough about the purchase?
I don't know that we know enough about the purchase. I'm sure there will be changes. You know, the one thing I know about any acquisition is everybody says during the acquisition process, "Oh, this is going to be great. Nothing's going to change."
Yeah.
And then
Well, something usually
goes by.
changes.
over a period of time,
Yeah,
there are some people that think that it's not great, and there absolutely changes, because that's why you do it. There have to be economies of scale. There have to be changes, or it wouldn't make sense to go buy someone.
I mean, at this point, it's more the status.
So my point is, and I'm not saying this as a negative. My point is, I think there will be changes. What I do know is that locally, I think Kaplan is well respected. Mm-hmm. I think they've got a great team over there, led by Chris Motes and others, and it'll be interesting to see how this all plays out.
I certainly, honestly, can't see any detriment at this point. I mean, there may be some detriments to folks who work there, changes in the way that the school's structured, but I think it's a good thing as well.
Yeah. Okay, next up, Krispy Kreme is coming to Hagerstown. Colin.
I will offer you 2 words. One is Shaw, and 2 is Crumpies.
Yeah.
If you're not Crumpies, you're not Crumpies. So Krispy Kreme can come into town. There'll be another Dunkin' Donuts. Great. Woohoo.
But Colin, maybe they think because it begins with a K that people get a little mixed up.
Have you ever?
They'll have a ride.
Let me ask you. Number one, have you ever been to Crumpies at that 8 or 9 o'clock hour, whatever time they open up to start selling their donuts? Have you ever been there and there not be a line? And for me, the answer is no.
No.
Number one. And number 2, do you really think that Krispy Kreme is going to have any impact on the market share that Crumpies has? I'm going to say not just in Hagerstown, but in Washington County. I think, and I don't know, full disclosure, I don't know that I think Crumpies donuts are all that much better than somebody else's, but I mean, it's a local landmark. It's a local staple.
To me, I personally, although I think Krispy Kreme does make good donuts.
Oh, they make fine donuts.
I do believe, and I'm gonna stick up for the hometown here. I think Crumpies is by far the best donut I've ever had in my life.
Oh, wow, excellent.
Well, that's a great testimony. So I guess Krispy Kreme is kind of have to step up really tall.
They're gonna have to
step up really tall to get to that.
Let's talk about our school board vacancy. What do we know about that, Tom?
We know it's vacant.
Yep.
And we know that there's now a commission in charge, which, this is a non-political supposed office, and the chair of the commission is the Republican Party chair for the county, which the optics don't look good. Let's put it that way. I wouldn't do it this way, in terms of trying to replace a nonpartisan person, and given the people on that, the committee, I don't know, kind of sits not terribly well with me.
The position being nonpartisan and the person having occupied that position not being in a position any longer for some very legitimate reasons are 2 different things.
Yeah, very different.
All right, United flight attendant denies a passenger a bathroom break, so the passenger uses a cup.
So what do you make of that, Jim? You usually have something good for something like this.
Words cannot express.
They cannot express
the things that are going through my mind.
Imagine that there may be some openings in PR at United Airlines sometime soon.
Well, yeah.
And I can't imagine how the mighty have fallen. Their brand has been destroyed in the last few months through largely the actions of employees and some Chicago airport police officers as well. And I honestly, at this point, I don't know that they're going to recover from it or meaningfully. The airline market is a very cutthroat market. That's the reason they overbook flights, because they are constantly struggling to make profits. And in that type of market, in that type of an economy, perception matters, and the perception is not good.
Yeah, now that they've got fisticuffs and peeing in cups, what could go wrong?
And not to get off topic a little bit, but they've now increased that they could pay somebody $10,000 for a seat.
Yeah.
If they need to be ejected, I'll call it. But let's talk about what that does to the price of an airline ticket, because now everybody's going to expect, hey, you're kicking me off, give me my 10 grand. And so who's going to pay for that?
Well, there's a simpler, so look, the reality is this: as an airline, when you're booking an airplane that has 300-400 people on it, some percentage of those people are not going to show up. They're going to miss the flight. Something's going to happen. They get delayed, go to the hospital, whatever. In today's modern world, with all the metrics that we have and all the technology we have, overbooking a flight by 10 people is unconscionable and is inexcusable, and they're doing something wrong. There are plenty of other airlines. I'm a fan of Southwest. That's no secret. Very seldom have I been on a flight that was a Southwest flight that they had to bump somebody off. It does happen occasionally, and they usually give a lot more than just $100 or whatever.
Well, and they also do it before anybody gets on the plane.
Yes.
That's the other.
I have, Southwest flight attendants are very nice, and I've never seen one beat somebody up.
All right. On that, Fox reveals $45 million price tag on sexual harassment allegations.
They got to pay to play.
I'm not even sure anybody got to play.
Well,
They tried to play. That's what got them in trouble.
Yeah,
that's what got them in
kidding.
trouble.
Is Fox on a downward spiral?
Well, what I've heard, and I've heard this from interviews with several female former anchors and current anchors of Fox News, was that it was a cultural issue with certain individuals in the organization, and Mr. O'Reilly was one of them. And there's a couple of others that have been brought up.
Well, and it started at the CEO.
It did. And look, there is no excuse in a modern world for that type of behavior. That's one of those things, just like racism, just like a lot of other things. There's no excuse for that. So behaving in such a matter is just I think that Fox needed to pay the settlement out, because obviously they're cutting off, and I think ultimately, although there were some contract payments that were made to certain individuals that were kind of high, but I think they had to cut the bleeding. They got rid of the people who were causing the issue, and hopefully they can recover.
You're going to get the last word on that. And speaking of last, stay tuned, because the last call is next.